All right, so we already did a video about what makes a good video game movie. Here on the Sonic Movie Show, we've seen over 50 video game movies. We've seen plenty of good. I want to talk about what makes a bad video game movie. There are definitely many of them, some borderline. Devin, I want to know what you think makes a bad video game movie.
These, compared to maybe even the good films, sometimes you just know it when you see it a little bit for me, where I'm like, unfortunately, this is bad. Like, it's easier to be negative, I feel like, on movies. So I feel like that's kind of, when you see it, you know it, you know? But I think for video game movies, and I want to preface this, if you haven't watched our other video on what makes a good video game movie, all our movies that we rank on this channel are on a video game movie curve. So what could be like a S tier video game movie for us might not be actually an S tier, just regular plain old movie.
Right.
It could even be like a C, maybe. It depends on how big your spectrum is and how many movies you've seen. So I want to preface with that. For a video game movie that is bad, like you said, quite a bit are. To me, it's usually starts at it's more bad than good. And we have a tier system, like I just kind of talked about. To me, it's D, backward. D, E, and F are kind of our bad movies, and D being more bad than good. But yeah, typically bad video game movies either don't respect the source, and maybe if they do, they try. It's just badly made, whether it's by bad acting, bad plot, bad story, bad director, perhaps. Sometimes we've seen that where we've had actors who did try and whatnot, but the director kind of put it together in a weird way, or just the set might be really bad, and that kind of just takes you out of it, and it doesn't really matter anymore what the actors do. So that's where it kind of goes into the, you know it when you see it, where you're just like, you kind of get taken out of it. It's hard for you to get in the movie, so to speak. I think those are kind of my two big things, where it's either don't follow what the video game it's based off is, and if it does, maybe it just doesn't do it well. And then the big thing just being, it's just a poorly made film. Bad video game movies are typically very bad movies.
Yeah.
So
we can sit here and be like, all right, so here's what makes a bad movie. But people know what makes a bad movie. You could have a really bad movie it's super like in tune with the video game. Yeah, it's a bad video game movie. But we're talking about perhaps maybe okay movies overall, but specifically the aspects that relate them to being based off a video game, what makes them bad. Because there are plenty of bad superhero movies where they don't maybe understand what the character is, and then that juxtaposition by how they're trying to make them act like in the comics. Man of Steel, I'm talking to you. Superman wouldn't act that way. You would be trying to save people, not throw Zod through buildings. A bad video game movie, to me, the key element, a sign where I can tell right away, oh no, this is gonna suck. Does it seem like the movie, whether it is like the guy directing it, the person producing it, the studio overseeing all of it, but just the movie result in the end, do they feel embarrassed to be based off a video game? Does the idea of like, oh, this world could be cool, but like, the video games are beneath us. Most of these Resident Evil films are like that. The Monster Hunter movie is like that. It felt like, yes, we have these fantastical worlds full of all these beautiful creatures, and we have cultures dedicated to hunting them and what that means in society, and maybe there's a message there that we relate to our own world. And nope. Mila Jovovich is just a Desert Storm soldier, and she gets like in the desert, and then there's like one of the monster, the dinosaurs on the cover. She fights it. You know what I mean? With another guy who's from this world, but we're kind of embarrassed by it.
And that's all you really get for the other worlds, the video game world of it all. Yeah.
Exactly. Assassin's Creed's another great example. I mean, that was a film where they're like, it's cool, the historical element of it. And ooh, we got a guy whose DNA is connected to a person in the past. And we have this science fiction element where that means we can send him back in times through the brain or whatever. That's neat. But like, the Illuminati angle's really dumb. So what if we try to make it really vague and really like, who gives a crap kind of attitude for it? Because it's just the cool Michael Fassbender stuff people care about. We don't care about Assassin's Creed. We could have made this based off a character in one of the games, but instead we were embarrassed by it, so we had to make something that we feel is more relatable. Another thing that I think could have been a bad video game movie, even if the entire movie was exactly the same, but this one thing was changed, Sonic the Hedgehog could have been a bad video game movie. If we had the original character design of Sonic, even if edited the same. The lines were the same. The story, everything's the same. But if he looked like that, we would be like, why? He looks stupid. It looks that you're like, but people don't want to see a cartoon character. Give him weird raccoon hands and
Make
give
him
him
realistic. Yeah,
like sharp teeth. Would that guy even wear shoes? I don't even remember if that render had shoes on. It probably did, but did they look like they'd be Sonic shoes or like what we think Skechers would look like as executives smoking our cigars at Paramount? You know what I mean? That movie avoided being a catastrophe just by the nature of respecting the design of the character. They made their own design, but they got someone that really knew their stuff. And they designed a good adaptation of Sonic. Honest to God, it's really easy to avoid making a bad video game movie. I don't know how much you agree with this, Devin, but as long as you aren't afraid to embrace it being based off a video game and like taking the story of that video game or the theme of that video game and being like, yes, this is my movie, I'm not embarrassed by this, then I think it's easy to avoid making a bad video game movie.
Yeah, I think, like I said, for me, I do value the whole production of a movie into regard for what makes a movie bad, even a video game movie bad. But like Assassin's Creed, you pointed to, where it's a well-made movie. Like there's some great like cinematic shots in that. There's some great action sequences, but it is just a lot of like. It just felt like they were trying to do something else, but they had to use Assassin's Creed as their property to, make that film.
It's the only way we're going to get funding is if we title it Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. Right. And so I think I somewhat agree with you. I think for me, I don't think that necessarily can get you out of the bad range. I think it puts you in a good spot to take that extra step to get into like our C tier films, which are typically just average, where it's just kind of 50-50 of good and bad. Sometimes those movies are well made and maybe do follow the source material, but they're kind of just boring. So maybe that if you compared to a lot of these movies, yes, I feel like if you do follow to a certain degree the elements of the game, you can at least maybe get you into the D category, and then there's some other elements for me to get into that C tier, where it's got to be somewhat entertaining, hopefully most of the time, and maybe you even get to B, maybe you sneak into B,
exactly.
Become good.
Exactly.
So it is like we've talked about, it's a video game movie curve, and sometimes that curve does change or gets really tough in some spots. We've had debates on our video game movie reviews, which I recommend to folks if you want us to really get into the nitty gritty of a specific movie and talk about why we think it goes where it needs to go. But yeah, I think I generally agree with you. It's just, for me, I need a little bit more of just the other stuff sometimes to get me out of bad.
I think cult classic is a kind of film where you can tell the people were earnest in trying their best. They just faltered. They didn't have the stuff. They didn't have the knowledge, the experience. It's a cult classic because it's not that great of a film, but boy, was it entertaining in a way where you could tell that that's what they were going to trying to do. And I think if you just try to adapt the video game as best you can, I think you just land in cult classic. Just unless, I don't know, you're racist and you have awful things you want to say. Not pointing at any director in particular, none at all. Yeah, I think we're on the same page. But what I want to know is what the people down in the comments below think. What makes a bad video game movie? Name some. We've seen some. Borderlands came out recently. We watched that. You can watch our review here on this channel if you dare. We're watching a whole bunch more video game movies over the course of this season here on the Sonic Movie Show. Here on this YouTube channel, you can find video versions of them. So please like and subscribe. Write down in comments at any of these video game movie reviews what you thought about the movie. Particularly in this video, I want to know what you think about bad video game movies. Maybe we've reviewed them already, so let us know. And yeah, I think that's it. So without any further ado, goodbye.
Au revoir.